Welcome to the Mojo Mundi podcast, where it's all about magic, manifesting, and movement. I'm Ginny Watts, the Dancing Witch, and in this episode we explore the myth of doing and its antidote, inspired unfolding. When I began work on this 11th Mojo Mundi podcast, the phrase myth of doing had just popped into my head. I knew what I was referring to, but I wondered if anyone else would. As it turns out, I was able to find one book titled The Myth of Doing by Jill Spiewak-Eng, and it appears to connect with my view of this concept. There were also a number of other books, blogs, and treatises that were aiming at the same idea. For example, there is the post on theconfidentmom.com titled The Myth of Doing It All, or the book by Samhita Mukhopadhyay, The Myth of Making It, A Workplace Reckoning. I'd like to ask you to take a moment and check in with what thoughts, emotions, and physical sensations arise in you as you consider the phrase, the myth of doing. Perhaps some of you feel curious or perplexed. How could there be a myth of doing? It's a verb, a real action. How much can you say about a verb? Perhaps others feel concerned or defensive. Why are you questioning doing? That's what we do. We do. Or maybe a few of you feel anxious, tense, focusing on all that you should be doing while instead you're listening to a podcast that is going to focus on doing. If any of these possibilities fit for you, then we are on the same page. In America, we are committed to doing. In fact, doing is a religion in our country. The word multitasking was first used in the mid-1960s, and it became a proclaimed source of personal growth in the 1990s. Multitasking at its heart is about doing more, and it became a huge market niche in the self-help industry. The business sector, of course, loved the idea of multitasking. Getting more done in a specific amount of time meant increased productivity with no increase in cost. And in the religion of capitalism, what is good for business is good for everybody. So why not apply multitasking to every aspect of life? Do more in less time. Of course, what we have discovered in the ensuing years is that A, doing more for less often isn't possible, and B, certainly isn't sustainable. There are a plethora of sources who lay out the details of why multitasking doesn't work, and more importantly, what the consequences are for those who try. For example, see 10 Real Risks of Multitasking to Mind and Body, not to mention the effect it has on those around you, by Guy Winch, Ph.D., 2016, on psychologytoday.com. Or How Multitasking Affects Productivity and Brain Health by Kendra Cherry, MSED, 2025, on verywellmind.com. And yet the idea of multitasking is deeply ingrained in the collective American psyche. If you don't believe me, look around at your fellow drivers the next time you're out and about. How many people are talking on their cell phones or texting on their cell phones as they drive, as well as simultaneously eating their lunches? Scroll through your last week and count the number of times you were doing multiple things at once and telling yourself, I have to, I should, or I need to do this all at once. Maybe some of us even pat ourselves on the back for being so efficient, so disciplined, so unselfish. And I do mean us because, of course, I am part of the collective American psyche. What are the problematic consequences of multitasking? According to the aforementioned plethora of sources, consequences include reduced productivity, increased errors, memory impairment, cognitive strain, stress and anxiety, and I would add depression, burnout, poor decision-making, detrimental impact on learning, difficulty with attention, and I would also add interference with relationships and connecting to others and our world. Why would we embrace the idea of multitasking in the first place, and why would we choose not to abandon it when the serious negative consequences became glaringly apparent? In her 2019 article, Why We Think Multitasking is More Efficient Than It Is, available on Forbes.com, Addie Gaskell sums it up as a twofold issue. 1, we like doing lots of things at once, and 2, we think it's a good practice. I would go deeper. Doing is a bedrock American value. We Americans see ourselves as the epitome of the can-do spirit, Calls to action are the common closer for fundraising letters, speeches, corporate training, social justice workshops. We all have to-do lists, honey-do lists, do's and don'ts lists. And we may go deeper still. In my private psychotherapy practice, the most common existential complaint was a lack of belief in one's inherent value. The idea that we are lovable, respectable, valuable, meaningful just because we exist was by far the most difficult concept for my clients to swallow. They could agree that a baby was absolutely worth loving just because. They believed that a small child was worthy just because. But depending upon their individual histories, as we moved into adolescence or even preteen ages, their conviction in regard to innate worthiness began to falter. And when it came to applying that concept to themselves, it seemed impossible. There is a watershed age where we no longer are lovable and valuable because all are lovable and valuable. There comes a dividing line, and once we cross, we are only valuable because of what we do. Even when a client would say, "It's not just what you do, it's who you are," and I would ask for further elucidation, the descriptions of who we are were how you treat people, whether or not you are honest, what you do in your life. If the only way we can feel worthy is by doing, who isn't going to embrace the idea of doing multiple things at once? How much more quickly we could get to the threshold of being lovable, worthy, acceptable. I am inviting us to release our fear-filled grasp on the sanctity of doing, and I offer instead the embrace of the power of allowing. We may begin to settle into that embrace by allowing that our innate worthiness extends beyond childhood. If that feels like too big a leap, we might try allowing that we certainly would encourage some other adult, our friend or lover, to embrace their innate worthiness. We might experiment with allowing our awareness of moments when we feel worthy because all things are worthy in the sight of Deity. We might gather a few quotes that allow us to hear and resonate with another's words on the subject. For example, here is a quote from research professor Brené Brown. "When you get to a place where you understand that love and belonging, your worthiness, is a birthright and not something you have to earn, anything is possible." What Brown is saying is that when we shift our beliefs about ourselves to allowing our innate worthiness, we shift our vibration into harmony with the life we want to live. A life of joy, love, prosperity, a life of experiencing our constant connection with Deity, a life of trusting that we are magic makers. When we are working with change via cognition, it helps to have motivation, a payoff for doing something new, something that takes extra effort, something that may feel risky to try. So here is a big payoff for all you amazing manifestors and spiritual seekers. In fact, here's a bundle of payoffs. In other conversations, we have discussed that efforting our way to manifesting isn't effective. When we try and work at manifesting, we create a stranglehold on our energy. Energy needs to flow. Working hard creates tension, which restricts flow. If we are working hard to earn our worth, we are actually narrowing our awareness of ever-present divine love. It's like tightly squeezing our eyes almost shut because we're trying to see something better. We end up feeling less worthy as we are trying our hardest to do worthy. Putting it simply, feeling unworthy is antithetical to co-creating. Feeling unworthy interferes with our experiencing Deity co-creating with us. The payoff of letting go of the need to do in order to be worthy is the opportunity to experience the very sense of innate worthiness we all seek. And when we rest with trust in the truth of Deity's absolute love and desire to co-create with us, we live our manifesting and spiritual paths. But wait, there's more. We understand now that doing our way through life has a multitude of negative consequences. We see that doing is a symptom of a deep disconnect from the truth of our innate worthiness. We recognize that we can allow a release of our fear-based drive to do. We have a couple of examples of how we may walk, step by step, into allowing the truth of innate worth. And we understand the natural consequence of embracing our worthiness just as we are. Now we come to inspired unfolding. As I began to embrace the law of attraction and to read and listen to Esther Hicks and the Abraham, The Secret, and What the Bleep Do We Know, I heard a lot about inspiration. Given that I was absolutely in the mindset of doing, I did my best to be inspired. Every animal that crossed my path, each contrail in the sky, each repeated number was examined for its deeper meaning. Was that just a coincidence that the lottery advertisement came up just now? Should I be buying that book that just fell onto the floor? I changed lanes, read license plates, examined coins, and became discouraged rather than inspired. I saw potential messages everywhere and doubted my belief in them, and then doubted my doubt. I read on, listened more, watched more. A new concept sprang into my awareness. Unfolding. It sounded so lovely. Everything will unfold, like the petals of a flower. My peaceful quiescence was short-lived. Once again, my doing leapt into action. Is this unfolding? Am I supposed to be doing something? How will I know when the unfolding is happening? Despite rather than because of my efforts, I began to get the hang of the law of attraction, and then the science of deliberate creation, and I began to recognize bursts of manifesting. In hindsight, I could see that choices along the path seemed to come out of nowhere, while simultaneously feeling completely natural and necessary. I recognized that I wasn't doing anything to make the manifestation happen, yet I was definitely taking actions, making choices, receiving. I just couldn't understand what was actually happening. What I did understand is that trying to make sure I got inspired wasn't working, nor was guessing at what I was being inspired to do. One day, I was sitting at the table with my friend Gail. We were discussing our experiences with manifesting, what seemed to work and what didn't. I explained my experience with trying to do inspiration, in contrast to the experience of not even knowing something was manifesting until after the fact. The idea that I wouldn't even notice the process fit with the concept of unfolding, a natural, imperceptible process, imperceptible until the outcome pointed to the unfolding. If only I could find a way to combine the idea of inspiration with unfolding, then I could relax. Gail nodded thoughtfully and said, "You mean like inspired unfolding?" After a bout of self-conscious laughter, I said, "Yes, inspired unfolding." Inspired unfolding acknowledges that the presence of inspiration, which is communication from Deity, God, Creator, and our response to that inspiration flow seamlessly and effortlessly, like the unfolding of a sprout from its seed, or the unfolding of a sunrise. When we relax and follow joy, curiosity, receptivity, when we experience life as experimentation, we can let go of doing and embrace allowing. We connect with an idea that feels joyful or interesting or exciting or comfortable, and we say yes to the possibility. We move forward, exploring with an open heart, seeing each step with wonder at the way the all is conversing through other people, resources, timing, thoughts, dreams, music, videos, and so on. What is the difference between the doing we are releasing and the actions taken in the process of inspired unfolding? Multitasking, acting on an experience in case it's inspiration, actively searching for the message and the meaning are all goal-oriented and designed to make a manifestation happen when and how we think it should. When we allow the process of co-creation, the outcome always has an element of surprise. We have an idea of what might be fun or satisfying or meaningful. That is inspiration. We don't have to guess, we simply are aware of the idea arising. By experiencing the thought and feeling the positive, attractive vibrations of that thought, we have already communicated to Creator, effortlessly, and the co-creating process has begun. We then experience circumstances that arise in our paths, or meet people who align with our ideas. We feel the harmony of the circumstance or the person, and we naturally move into opportunity or relationship. The experience is effortless, serendipitous, and often occurs when we least expect it. We may not even recognize that this opportunity or this meeting is leading to our ultimate manifestation until it does. In the process of inspired unfolding, we are riding the current, trusting in Goddess, Allah, the Tao, to partner with us, and that process becomes an attestation of the living correspondence between each of us and Creator. How does inspired unfolding look in action? I recently completed a 20-year process of writing and self-publishing a book. There were many instances of inspired unfolding. I will describe 2 of them. About 10 years into this saga, I had found a writing group. With their support and encouragement, I had made great strides on the manuscript. As the book really began to flesh out, I was faced with a new stumbling block. I wanted to have illustrations for the book by someone who understood and respected the spiritual and metaphysical content. How would I ever find the best person? I had no idea where I might even begin the search. One day, I sat down to put on my shoes in preparation for heading to writer's group. My illustrations dilemma was foremost in my mind. I consciously relaxed and shifted into a sense of curiosity. How might this riddle be solved? I glanced up from where I was sitting and saw the early afternoon light flooding in the doorway onto the cover of a CD sitting on my piano. I recognized the style of the artist. The artwork was done by a friend of mine, Colette, and it was exactly what I was looking for. I had no idea until that moment that Colette had designed the CD art. I knew her style, but had never put it together with my book. The afternoon light had shown me the resolution to my dilemma. No effort, just riding the wave. The manuscript progressed. Colette had completed the art. The reality of actually figuring out how to get the book into print became the next hurdle. Once again, I had no idea how to go about the process. I knew I would self-publish, which meant I had to find someone to help me with the design, layout, fonts, format. This was not my forte. Again, I wanted someone who would understand and relate to the spiritual and manifesting content in the book. I chose to be curious and to trust that I was co-creating the book. If that was the case, then the right person and I would find one another. One day, as I was tidying up after a session of my soul-free dance, 2 women were talking across the studio to one another. One of the women, Patsy, was describing editing she was doing for a friend. I knew she was very interested in spirituality, manifesting, and metaphysics. I knew she was a photographer and liked design work. She also loved to dance and move to music. I felt a thrill of excitement. I hurried over to Patsy and explained that I was looking for an editor for my book and gave her a brief synopsis of the manuscript. She was immediately animated. She was not only interested in editing my book, she had ideas about designing the book, and she even knew of a small, women-run publishing company that liked to work with new authors and unusual formats. Inspired unfolding. I had no idea when I first met Colette or Patsy that they would be linchpins in manifesting my book. I did no searching, no interviewing, no tough negotiations. I didn't have to guess if the light on the CD cover was a sign or wonder over whether or not a casual conversation across the dance studio was an inspiration. It was absolutely clear in my body and in theirs. We were meant to work together. Changing long-held beliefs is very challenging. Taking a path that flies in the face of tradition, cultural norms and values, and societal measures of distinction is courageous. When we choose to embrace inspired unfolding, we are not only breaking with our own beliefs and habits, we are choosing to say no to deeply ingrained communal mores. What we get in exchange is deep connection with our deities and a path to amazing co-creation and manifestation. I invite you to share your experiences of inspired unfolding or your questions about inspired unfolding, the art of allowing, and your spiritual and manifesting journey by connecting with me via my website or email or on Facebook at Caravan of Dreams MT. Our music is used by permission of the artist, Sean Phoenix. Thank you, Sean. And thank you to Bozeman Public Library for the Workbench Sound Studio located in beautiful downtown Bozeman, Montana. If you would like to learn more about allowing and how to find your unique style of manifesting, please visit my website, caravanofdreamsmt.com, or email me at dancingwitchmt@gmail.com. This is Ginny Watts, the Dancing Witch. Till next time, blessed be.